Hello, my witchy friends. Today I have to show you one of my favorite reference books. If you're ever in a bookstore and you're looking around and you get to the witchy section or the esoteric or occult section of the bookstore, this is almost always filed away with those types of books because it is a dictionary of symbols. So a lot of the objects and various traditions, holidays, animals, things like that are in this book are associated with magic and the history of magic and witchcraft. So I have it on my shelf just because sometimes it really helps when I'm writing on something and I just want confirmation that something means what I think it might mean. So I thought today we could flip through the dictionary and look up a couple of entries together, and then maybe we can do a witch theme. I know I'm very, very predictable, but they don't all have to be witch themed. We can veer off a little bit here and there if there's an entry that interests us. Okay? So let me light our little candle, as is tradition. It's a very small candle. I think it's supposed to be iris flower scented. But it's basically a tea light at this point. Oh, the paper makes an interesting sound. So my lighter actually keep inside this cauldron. I think most people should keep their lighters inside cauldrons. It's just the most convenient location. I mean, it's made of cast iron, the cauldron, not the lighter. That would be weird. So, seems like the right place to store important things. Okay, I'll just put my lighter back in my cauldron. And I'll put this here. Very nice. Okay, so the Dictionary of Symbols, and it's issued by Penguin Reference, and it's by Jean Chevalier and Alain Guilbrand, and it's translated by John Buchanan Brown. And it says here, symbols are central to literature, religion, and national identity, but they're also at the heart of our inner dream worlds, a potent source of insight into our unconscious minds. This remarkable dictionary explores the huge variety of interpretations different cultures have given to the fundamental symbols of humankind. And it says that it's compiled by an international team of experts, astrologers and classicists, psychotherapists, and it explains the rich symbolism of animals, birds, fish, plants, and legendary creatures, from bats to centaurs and dolphins. Well, that's quite a wide variety, if you ask me. It gives meanings that have become attached to colors, instruments, numbers, precious stones, and parts of the body, and includes articles on seminal symbols, including the cross and the crossroads, the serpent and the sphere. And it covers central figures from the Bible, antiquity, and Eastern and Western mythologies. It's a huge book. I was immediately drawn to it. I mean, I thought to myself, if there's ever anything I'm wondering the symbolism, means, it's gotta be inside of this book. It's certainly not small enough that you could just tote it around. I mean, you need a pretty big tote bag for that, but I have consulted it before many times, and it's surprisingly reliable. There's a bibliography at the end, and yeah, it just goes from A to Z. And there's like a little author biography. I always imagine how weird it would be to work on the dictionary or something like that. What an interesting job, And there's a list of contributors here, quite a few. I mean, this feels like less than I would expect for a book of this size. I don't know. Okay, let's just start looking at it. We could start with the first page. I'm seeing one that already interests me here, Abracadabra. It says, this charm was used throughout the Middle Ages. One only had to write it down in the triangular pattern shown below and wear it round one's neck as a sort of phylactery or charm to be protected from various diseases and to be cured of fever. So there's a triangular shaped pattern here that they show. It's very bizarre. So you could wear it. If you wrote it down in this pattern and then wore it, you would be protected. The word derives from the Hebrew Abracadabra, meaning strike dead with thy lightning. In Hebrew, it comprises 9 letters. By arranging the letters in a reverse triangle, the celestial energies which the charm claims to entrap are directed downwards. Accordingly, the figure should be seen 3-dimensionally as a funnel. The magic letters slanting down from the wide mouth to the narrow spout comprise the lines of force of a mighty whirlwind. Woe betide the powers of evil which it strikes, since they will vanish forever from the world above into the abyss, from which there is no return. And so when you see letters all capitalized and kind of set differently in the text, that means that this is another entry in the Dictionary of Symbols. In this sense, the charm Abracadabra was a response to those same fears which inspired the invention of the amulet, charm, or pentacle. It is only one of the many charms based upon a very ancient symbolism, and it has been compared with one of the names of Mithras, the sun god and savior, who offers sacrifice. Like amulets, talismans, and pentacles, this charm seeks to give the individual a sense of protection through communication with the higher powers and with the mysterious laws which govern the universe. This is why I love this reference guide and all of the entries in it, because it just is so full of history. Like, they really cover all of the bases, and they tell you little excerpts, so it gives you a nice taste of the history behind things without being too overly detailed. You can just search elsewhere for more information, if something intrigues you. I'll just flip through a little more. Alchemy. Alchemy is the art of transmuting metals for the purpose of obtaining gold. And of course, because this is a reference book, there aren't any pictures, but that's okay. I always assume that by this point, many of you have closed your eyes. And I'm very glad for that, because that's what we're all here for, right? To just close our eyes and listen to some soft-spoken reading. And here's Amulet. The amulet was believed to possess or to encapsulate a magical power. It embodied what it symbolized, a peculiar relationship between the wearer and the powers which the amulet represented. The amulet contains in itself all the forces at work on every level of the cosmos, but actually places the wearer at the center of those forces, increasing his vitality, making him more real, and guaranteeing him a happier state after death. Egyptian mummies were covered in gold, bronze, stone, or faience amulets to preserve the immortality of the dead, as they had guarded his or her health, happiness, and life on earth. According to their shape and the figures which they represented, these amulets were believed to confer strength, vitality, knowledge, physical enjoyment, and so on. The Mason's square, the angle pointing upwards and with a plumb line dependent from it, provides a figure with the virtues of an amulet, which is as much a part of ancient Egyptian religious art as it is of modern Masonic symbolism. It is the assurance of perpetual stability. The commonest and the most powerful of these Egyptian talismans bore the figures of the scarab beetle, the eye, the girdle of Isis, and the Ankh. Wow. Amulets. I love the history of early magic. If you're interested in that kind of thing, I do a flip through and a reading from the Oxford Illustrated History of Witchcraft and Magic. And there's a lot of ancient magic in that particular video. Okay, let's see if we can find Broomstick. Pages are so soft in this book. Like, they just feel really nice. A little bit less sturdy than I'm used to. Oh, here it is. Okay. One of my favorite objects, of course, is the broomstick. So we have to look at it. Okay. Although it is to outward appearance a humble piece of household equipment, the broom is for all that a sign and symbol of sacred power. In ancient shrines and temples, sweeping was itself an act of worship, since only those with clean hands could clear the floor of all those elements which had entered from the outside world to defile it. Similarly, in North African agricultural civilizations, the broom used to sweep the threshing floor is a cult object. Again, during the first few days of mourning, the house should not be swept to avoid prosperity being driven out of doors or offense to the soul of the departed. Similarly, in Brittany, the house should not be swept after dark, since this will drive the luck away, and the movements of the broom hurt the souls who walk. Brooms which drive out the dust and dirt can in fact hurt and put to flight those invisible house guests, the spirits which protect hearth and home. Equally important, too, are the materials from which brooms are made. At the time of their great spring festival, Kabyle women gather bunches of flowering thorn. This will be made into lucky brooms, which will not drive good fortune out of the house or accidentally strike against invisible guests. However, if the broom reverses its role, it becomes an instrument of sorcery, and in every land, witches mount their broomsticks, go up the chimney, and ride to their Sabbaths. Well, we're gonna have to find the entry for witches and Sabbaths, you know. These broomsticks may perhaps be phallic symbols, of course, but they are also and especially symbols of the powers which the broom has failed to drive out, but which gain control of it and use it as they please. That feels like a really short entry, but I'm glad that it's there in the first place. Okay. How about Cauldron? Does that sound good? That's the next one. Cauldron. Let's see where it is. Oh, right here. Okay, cauldrons. Cauldrons are large metal vessels for heating, boiling, or cooking. Their main use is for making broths or stews, but they also produce diabolical or magic potions, hence the devil's or witches' cauldrons of legend. Among the Celts, the cauldron corresponded to the horn of plenty. A jar or vase of other cultures, and it was their cauldron of plenty, which not only provided an inexhaustible supply of food, but was also the symbol of limitless knowledge. In Celtic literature, three types of cauldron are to be found. One is the cauldron which belongs to the god Druid, the Dagda. This is the cauldron of plenty, which leaves none unsatisfied. The second is the cauldron of rebirth, into which, according to the Mabinogi or Brown one, the dead were cast to come alive the following day. A third type of cauldron was sacrificial. It was filled with wine or beer, and in it the king of the old year was drowned while his palace was burned about him on the last day of the last feast of Samhain of his reign. Here we have 3 variations on the same divine talisman, the ancestor and prototype of the Grail. Okay, there's a bunch of reference stuff here. It should be noted that the decked is Cauldron of Plenty, since it belonged to the Lord of Great Knowledge, not only held enough to feed all mankind bodily, but knowledge of all arts and sciences. It may also be added that Carowyn, goddess of poets, smiths, and physicians, also owned a cauldron, which was a source of inspiration and of magical powers. And there's a citation here. It says that the majority of mythical and magic cauldrons in Celtic tradition find parallels in other mythologies. And it says there's magic power in water. Cauldrons, kettles, chalices are all receptacles of this magic force, which is often symbolized by some divine liquor such as ambrosia or living water. They confer immortality or eternal youth, or they change whoever owns or bathes in them into a hero or god. And it's quite lengthy actually. I don't think I'm gonna read all of it. Well, there is a section on Greek legend though. Let's look at that. Cauldrons are recurrent elements in Greek legend. Boiling in a cauldron was a magical rite designed to confer upon whoever submitted to the ordeal a variety of faculties, first and foremost being immortality. Here we clearly have a myth of initiation, which explains and interprets the dangers threatening children and young people, and is hence utterly consonant with primitive practice. Nevertheless, other Greek legends represent passing into the cauldron as a sort of ordeal to determine the divine nature of the person so subjected. Thetis, for her part, anxious to know whether the children which she had borne to Peleus were mortal, dipped them into a bowl or cauldron full of water, in which they drowned. Or according to another source, into boiling water, in which they were naturally met with no better fate. Medea boiled old Peleus in a cauldron on the specious pretext that she was restoring him to youth. So the cauldron represents the means and the place of restoring strength, regeneration, and even of restoring to life. In other words, of profound biological change. However, this symbol is ambivalent, and the cauldron may also be the prelude to birth as a new being after death and cooking. I mean, yeah, I like that it does acknowledge that witches did use their cauldrons to cook, make broths, soups, and things like that. I mean, it was also an important tool in magic, but that's why I started this YouTube channel, because I think there's a lot of misinformation about witches and magic, and a lot of it can be cleared up by us just sitting back and listening to their actual histories. So that's why I love reading all of this to you. It's so fun. Okay. What about just cat? Because, I mean, there's a strong association with witches and cats. Oh, castle. Oh, here we go. Oh, this is the This is a long one. We'll read excerpts. So the symbolism of the cat varies widely from beast of good to beast of evil omen, explicable simply in terms of the combination of the gentle and the sinister in the creature's appearance. In Japan, cats are held to be beasts of ill omen, allegedly capable of harming women and assuming their appearance. In India, statues of ascetic cats are found to be depicting the beatitude of the animal kingdom. In Cambodia, a cat is carried round in a cage from house to house with songs and processions to pray for rain. There's all sorts of different cultures. We've got Celtic traditions too. Islamic traditions. Cats are sometimes viewed as servants of the underworld. If you knew my cats, you would think they were servants of the underworld. There's some kind of higher power involved with their business. Interesting. Not as much about witches there. It's kind of hit or miss with this book. How about we find Pentagram? Oh, looks like there's Elixir. Ooh, Elixir. The elixir of immortality, which recurs in tradition, symbolizes a transmuted state of consciousness. Whatever heights this may reach, the elixir assures its lasting effects. In its negative aspect, the elixir may confer the lasting continuation of unconsciousness. Such was the elixir of forgetfulness, which the druids of Ulster gave the hero, I'm going to butcher this pronunciation, Goodnight, at the request of Immer, his wife, so that he would lose all remembrance of Pan, the lovely wife of the sea god. Oh, and that's it, and it just goes into Elves. Norse in origin, these airy spirits delight to dance in the meadows at night. While appearing to invite mortals to join them, in reality they cause their death. Although they are spirits of air, they spring from earth and water. And they're charming, fickle, small, floating, cloudy, and terrifying. They symbolize the powers of darkness and the underworld, which causes mortals, and especially adolescents, to die of fright. Adults are too dim-sighted, too thick-skinned to see them, as young people do, lurking in the mists. They are like the swirling fog of burgeoning passions, and at the first dreams of love. They fascinate and enchant young hearts and ingenious minds. The White Lady is Queen of the Elves. This is a very playful entry, like less factual and more lyrical, almost. Okay, let's do the moon and then pentagram. How about? And if you like this video, let me know. We can do some more. This is a really big book, so I'd be happy to return to it. The moon. Here it is. Okay. So, lunar symbolism is related to that of the sun, of course. Its two most basic characteristics spring on the one hand from the fact that the moon has no light of its own and simply reflects the light of the sun, and on the other that as it goes through its regular phases, the moon changes shape. This is why it symbolizes dependence and invariably the female principle, as well as periodical change and renewal. On both counts, the moon is a symbol of change and of growth. Okay. The moon also symbolizes passing time, living time, which it measures by its successive and regular phases. And it says the moon becomes the universal measuring gauge. The same symbolism has linked together the moon and the sea, waters, rain, fertility, animals, plant life, man's destiny after death, and the ceremonies of initiation. The mental syntheses made possible by the realization of the moon's rhythms connect and unified varied realities. This is a very thorough entry. Look how many pages this is. Oh my gosh. Oh, and it also has many tarot meanings of the traditional tarot deck, like think Rider-Waite, for example, which is really cool. Let's see. The moon symbolizes dreams. There's all sorts of zodiac symbols here. In myth, legend, folklore, a folktale, and poetry, the moon is the symbol of the female deity and the forces of life incarnate in the deities of plant and animal fertility and mingled in the worship of the great mother goddess. Astrological symbolism carries this endless and universal stream still further by linking the moon with the infusion into the individual of the influence of the mother as food, warmth, love, and an emotional world. Okay, let's find Pentagram, because this is another commonly misunderstood witchy symbol, and I want to know how they represent it. Okay, pentagrams take either pentagonal or star shape. Their symbolism is manifold, but is always based upon that of the number 5, which expresses the conjunction of inequalities. The 5 points of the pentagram come together in fruitful marriage of 3, the male principle, with 2, the female principle. They were used as recognition signs between members of the same group or society, as for example the followers of Pythagoras in classical antiquity. The pentagram united them. It was one of the keys to higher knowledge and opened the door to what was secret. It also bears the meaning of marriage, good fortune, and fulfillment. The ancients regarded it as a symbol of the idea of perfection. A little bit on Masonic tradition. And it gives expression to a force, which is the synthesis of complementary powers. It's a pretty good summary. Could be a little longer, but I appreciate it for what it is. Let's find witch, because we have not found witch yet. And of course, that would be towards the end here. Wine and window, wings and wolf and winnowing basket. Oh, here, switch. Okay. Alright. So, regarded witches as a projection of the male anima, that is, of the primitive female aspect which survives in the male unconscious. Witches give this detestable shadow a physical form of which they are unable to divest themselves, and at the same time assume a formidable power. For women, witches are female versions of the scapegoat to which they transfer the darker side of their impulses. So let's see where that comes from, because there is a bibliography here. ADLJ. Yeah. Gerard Adler, when it's from 1957, so a bit outdated. That's another thing with this book that I've noticed. But this transference is, in fact, secret involvement in the imagined nature of witches. Until the dark forces of the unconscious are brought out into daylight of knowledge, feeling, and action, the witch will continue to live within us. She is the fruit of repression, embodying the desires, fears, and other tendencies within our psyche which are incompatible with our egos, either because they are too infantile or for some other reason. The anima is often personified as a witch or priestess, since women have stronger links with the forces of darkness in the spirit world. Oh my goodness. And a lot of what I study goes against this notion of witches, but I do like that it says the witch is the antithesis of the idealized image of womanhood. That's why a lot of women became witches. The ones that were able to by choice, of course. Witches have been regarded from another angle as the deliberate perversion under Christian influence of priestesses, sibyls, and female druidic wonder workers. Unlike the initiates of classical antiquity who joined the visible to the invisible and the human to the divine, they wore diabolical and hideous disguises, but the unconscious called up the fairy, of whom the witch, serving the devil, came thereafter to be regarded simply as a caricature. As creatures of the unconscious, witches and fairies are ladies with a long history behind them. Something about that is so goofy. They're ladies with a long history behind them, recorded in the psyche, and with the complicated development of personality transference, which legend has shaped, clothed, and brought to life as hostile characters. And similarly, the warlock, or sorcerer, is the manifestation of the irrational content of the psyche. Very Freudian in this book. External action and assistance will not free the victim from the grip of the sorcerer and from subjection to him. This can only be done by an inward change, which initially takes the form of a positive attitude to the unconscious, and by gradual integration into the conscious personality of all the elements emerging from the unconscious. Oh my goodness. Okay. The sorcerer is simply a symbol of undisciplined and untamed creative energy, which may be unleashed against the interests of the ego, the family, or the group. The warlock within, who has charge of the dark powers of the unconscious, knows how to use them, and by their means to ensure his power over others. Okay. He can only be disarmed by making the same forces available to consciousness and by identifying the self with them through integration. Okay. And there's a little bit about devil worship, divination, but the more witch-focused parts are here. Okay, very interesting interpretations. It is really about symbolism more than history, but I think it's interesting to see this encapsulation of associations with the witches image over time. Okay, we can probably do one more. How about we do Solstice? Because we just had the spring equinox. It just happened. Happy spring to everyone. It's right here. The symbolism of the solstices should attract our attention since it does not coincide with the character of the seasons in which they occur. In fact, it is the winter solstice which inaugurates the ascendant phase of the annual cycle, while the summer solstice inaugurates its descendant phase. Hence arises the Greco-Roman symbolism of the gates of the solstices, represented by the two faces of Janus and later by the two faces of St. John in summer and winter. It is easy to observe that it is the winter gateway from which the light phase of the cycle emerges and its dark phase from the summer gate. There's a lot here. As apparently in Hindu tradition, the winter solstice inaugurates the way of the gods. The summer solstice is the way of the ancestors. And the solstices also play their part in Christian iconography. The summer solstice, around the 21st of June, marks the sun's transit, the festival of the sun. Very interesting. Just a little section on solstices. Okay. I wonder if they have Cloak. If you've listened to my other videos, you know how much I love a cloak. And I feel like when I wear a cloak, I have some kind of magical symbolic power in me. So it's gotta be in here, right? Somewhere. Let's see. We're in the seas. Yeah, okay. A cloak. It's right here. What does it say at the bottom here? It's a royal attribute of the gods of Ireland. In the story, the courtship of Ite, the god of the otherworld, Madir, demands in compensation for the loss of an eye in a brawl, a chariot, a cloak, and the most beautiful maiden in Ireland as his bride. The cloak is doubtless that of Meganon, another name for Madir. This was a cloak of invisibility, like Siegfried's Tarnikep, and of forgetfulness. In the story, The Madness of Goodnight, the god shakes his cloak between his wife Fand, Swallow, and the hero whose mistress she had become to prevent them ever meeting again, and it made her invisible. The god Lug wore a similar cloak, which enabled him to pass through the entire Irish army without being seen when he came to aid his son. In Celtic tradition, the men from the great world to the east told the Dagda that whoever wraps himself in the cloak acquires the air, shape, and face of whomsoever he wishes, so long as he wears it. This is a symbol of the changes wrought by human trickery and the different personalities which humans can assume. When monks or nuns withdraw from the world, take the habit and make their final vows, they cover themselves in a cloak or a cape, and this action symbolizes a withdrawal into oneself or into God, the corresponding separation from the world and its temptations, and the renunciation of the desires of the flesh. To put on the cloak is to show that you have chosen wisdom philosopher's cloak, or that you have a rank, office, or role of which the cloak is an emblem. And cloaks, by process of identification, symbolize their wearers, and to give away one's cloak is to surrender oneself. When St. Martin gave half his cloak to a beggar, there was more to the act than the material gift. It symbolized the charity which inspired the saint. Okay. Well, I think we learned quite a bit based on only like a handful of definitions that we looked at today. We really didn't look at that many symbols in the time that we had. So, okay. I hope that you enjoyed this video of the dictionary of symbols. And I hope that you have a very restful sleep. And thank you so much for being here, each and every one of you. And I'll see you again very soon.